Hi everybody, I'm trying to set up my phone right now while I'm doing this live, which is a little sketchy. But I wanted to welcome you to the Clarinet Project live stream, Ask a Clarinet Teacher. So definitely feel free to ask me some of your clarinet questions here. I'm happy to answer them. I see that Orgene is here and Daisy's here. Ow, and I just poked myself in the eye with my glasses. And I will go ahead and jump right in with one of my popular questions that I get a lot, which is a lot about my equipment. So people tend to ask me what kind of clarinet I'm playing on, what kind of reed I'm playing on, mouthpiece, ligature, things like that. They want to know. And then I'll give you some of my recommendations for good clarinets, good mouthpieces, good reeds while we're waiting for some questions to roll in. So my clarinet here is a buffet. It is a Prestige. I tried a lot of buffets before I got to this one. I used to play a festival, which I loved very much, and I've tried the other clarinets, the Bakkuns and the Selmers and the Yamahas, and I like them all. I just keep coming back to buffet. It's the clarinet that I grew up on, so it's just very comfortable for me, and I feel very at home here. My mouthpiece is, it's a Hawkins mouthpiece. It's the new Bakkun Hawkins Vocalese mouthpiece, and I really like it. It's, I believe, the CG one. The reeds that I play on are D'Addario reeds. I use a 4 reed for that, and then my ligature is this Eddie Daniels ligature. I tend to change ligatures a lot. I have a beautiful Silverstein from my husband. It was lovely. It's a really nice gift, and I'll play that one sometimes. And I love the Rovners, so I'll go back and forth with the Rovners, and I'm playing this Eddie Daniels one now, which I also really like. So it looks like we've got some questions, and let's go. Let's jump right in. All right, so Kyler wants to know, how do you hit the high notes? Zara wants to know, oh, Zara says you haven't been to one in a while. I haven't had one in a while, actually. And Daisy says, is it even possible for clarinets to make a wah-wah sound like brass players can? And then Arjeen wants to know, is it okay for me to play with my right hand? That I don't know. Can you do more detail about that question? Because that one is a little confusing for me. Okay, so let's jump in with the high notes. This is also a very popular question that I get a lot. And I just want to have a little bit more clarification. Kyler, when you talk about high notes, are you talking about the altissimo range? So that's after you've made it to C, and then you have 2 and 3 down, and your index fingers up, and 1 and 2 for C sharp, and then going up in there. That's the high range of the clarinet, the altissimo range. But sometimes people will call the high range just getting over the break, because that's difficult. And it's a big, rite of passage for clarinet players when we can play over the break. So that would be when you have that B and your thumb and your register down in the back, and those would be your clarion range of the clarinet for those high notes there. So just let me know which ones you want to know more about, if it's the clarion over the break or if it's the altissimo over that extra break at the very, very top. Okay. All right, is it even possible for clarinet players to play the wah-wah? That is a good question. My husband's a trumpet player, and so yes, they could definitely do that. I can only see that would be on the low E, and I think you would need an extra hand or some help from somebody, so that would be down there from the bell. The clarinet, if you even had a third hand, is because our sound does really come out of these tone holes. A lot of people think it only comes out of the bell, but that's not true. So you could be playing, an E, and there's going to be no difference there. A C, and no difference there. So if you're doing that wah-wah sound like the brass players do with the hand in the bell or a mute, it's only going to work for us on a low E, possibly a B. Now, you can manipulate the sound with your embouchure like people do for glissandos. So you might be able to recreate the wah-wah effect that way, but really, that might be one we leave to the brass players because they can do it so well. Okay, next question. Let's see. Is it even possible? Okay, yeah, is it okay? Okay, the second one I said, so over the break. So Kyler, that's a great question, and that's not a hard thing to do. It takes a bit to get there, but once you get it, it's really, really not that difficult. I think the trick with playing over the break is not actually starting down here on low E to low B by pressing the register key, but actually starting on a note that you're more comfortable playing. It gets hard playing down to low E for a lot of clarinet players because their fingers will slide off these keys if you have smaller hands or thinner fingers. I see that black line right there under my third finger. or next to my third finger, that is where I see leaks happen. So you have to be very, very careful with that. And that's what makes playing over the break difficult, because a lot of times we're going from an A, putting all these fingers down to a B. So we're not going to start there. Let's start at a B flat right here. And what we're going to do is just tap that register key. So just go from B flat to an F. I'll come around to the other side so you can see it better. So start down on the notes that you can play well below the break, and then hit the register from there. Once you get comfortable doing that many, many times, then start on that. If you can make it to the B, start on the B, then go to a B flat, then start on the B, go to an A. If you're playing a C major scale, that would be the pattern that you would do, the A to the B. It's easier to start with all your fingers down, move to the A, then back up to the B. You can also leave your right hand down when you're playing over the break like that, or excuse me, when you're playing the A over to going over the break, and that will help as well. But it really only works for the A and the A flat, maybe the G, other notes it'll start to affect the pitch. So try those exercises. Those will help you get over the break. It's a lot easier to do it that way. All right, next question. Okay, Arjeen, what do you suggest beginner players to practice to become better clarinet players? Yeah, and your question where you said, is it okay for me to play with my right hand? I'm a little confused about that one. Yes, yes, it's okay to play with your right hand. Some clarinet teachers have clarinet players start just in the left hand, and they'll actually have people hold the register key like they're pinching it, just to get used to this area of the clarinet. I made a whole playlist of just top hand clarinet songs for beginners, but you might have a teacher that has you do your thumb under the thumb rest, which is what I do with my students. It's very, very rare that I have somebody hold it like that. Usually they're very little, like 7 or 8 years old. But once you can play that C comfortably, just go ahead and drop that index finger for B flat. And if that feels nice and it works and it sounds beautiful, then drop that next note for the A. And then you can play around with these pinkies. But just a heads up, that G can be hard to get to. A lot of times it will slide off, and there's a bit of a stretch in there that takes a bit of getting used to. But that's how you work your way down into that right hand. So what do I suggest beginner players to practice to become better clarinet players? Okay, so let's build on adding that third hand, whoops. I just watched Men in Black. Let's build on adding that second hand. So let's start on an F, and then just drop your fingers going down. This is one of my favorite exercises for beginner clarinets. It's just walking down. And if you can get that G comfortably, try for the F. If you can't get it right away, it's okay to play the A flat or the F sharp here and explore these pinky keys. Okay, so for beginner clarinets, I would walk down here, just comfortably to see and where you get. And if it's not working and that note isn't speaking for you, just go up to the one above and then try it again. And if it's not working, that's okay. That's where you stop. So think about it like you're building a brick foundation, just one brick at a time, and you keep building from there, and it gets bigger and bigger, but you need that good foundation. Once you can get down to that F comfortably, then try tapping that register key and getting over the break, and then lifting your fingers up this way and see how high you can get like that. One of the most important things that you need to remember as a new clarinet player is tongue with the tip of your tongue and the tip of the reed. That's one that a lot of times band directors don't get to as much, or maybe they'll breeze past it after mentioning it one time, and that can cause you big problems down the road. It's a hard habit to break if you're anchor tonguing or throat tonguing. So just watch out for that. Make sure you're using the tip of the tongue, tip of the reed from the very beginning. So a good song to play with this is Hot Cross Buns, because it's repetitive. So you always want to play with a beautiful sound too. If you're squeaking or getting grunts in those articulations, stop them right away. You always want to have a beautiful sound. We are craftsmen of sound, right? So if we were using a potting wheel and spinning it and creating a pot with the clay, we wouldn't let there be any nicks in there or chunks out of that clay. We would smooth that out. And that's what we want to do with our clarinet sound right from the beginning. So put away that stereotype of the squeaking beginner clarinet player and always work for that beautiful sound right from the beginning, even if you're just playing hot cross buns. Keep your fingers curved and close. So just watch out for these things where people hold their clarinets with their fingers splayed out like that, or the index finger in their right hand jammed under the side keys. Always work on that good hand position too. And then of course, embouchure. So you want to have your lips firm against your teeth like this, but your corners pulled forward in that U sound and a nice pointy chin. So good muscle structure here to hold the clarinet. Okay, moving on to the next one. All right, Aiden, any tips for grade 4? I don't know if you mean grade 4 for playing music or grade 4 in school, so clarify on that one. Daisy, do you know any advanced books for clarinet like etudes? I like more music to work on right now. I got the Rose Etude book. Yeah, the Rose Etude book is excellent, especially if it's the 32 etudes. There's another one of 40 etudes that isn't as good. I like the Krebs 416 studies because they're nice short studies, 1 or 2 lines, and they're really good, and they get progressively harder, and they go through all the keys. So you get the major and the minor, so they're good little exercises in the keys. The Berriman book, I think it's the 3rd one, that's really, really good too. The Height, Melodious, and Progressive Etudes is also excellent. The Closet book, the big thick one, it was orange in my day. The Celebrated Method for Clarinet. I just have the cover because I've used mine so much it's fallen apart, but the Closet book is excellent as well. There's wonderful Polacek studies, Kell articulation studies, the Janacek, or the Yettel is really, really good too. So there are a lot of great etude books out there, but my top ones really are the Rose 32 etudes, the Closet Celebrated Method, the Krebs 416 studies. I love the Polacek because a lot of them are based on orchestral excerpts. So those are really fun to play also. Okay, those are good. Great question. Thank you. How long should I be practicing a day from Shafqat Rabi? So that depends on you, and it depends on your schedule, and it depends on what your goals are. So for instance, if you're just getting back into playing, you're going to spend some time warming up and building these muscles, and it might only be 10 minutes a day that you can handle your muscles in here. If you're a beginner, I like to do that 10 minutes a day and then work your way up from there. But if you're auditioning for a music school or a military band audition, then you're going to probably want around 4 hours a day plus. It depends. It's not so much for me about how much time you should be practicing, but how you are practicing. It's much more important to practice efficiently and with a problem-solving mentality. You want to go in there, fix a problem, repeat it so it's nice and solid, the good repeats, and then move on. So if you've met your practice goals for that day, then you're done. The only one that's a time sort of warm-up or time sort of part to the practicing would be your warm-ups, and that just depends on what your warm-up goals are. Do you have a big recital coming up? Then you're going to want to do a 45-minute long tone warm-up so that you're making sure that everything is in shape here, just like you're lifting weights. But warm-ups, I like to tell people, once they start getting into it, add that time to it. Gradually work your way up through the warm-ups, and then the rest of your practicing that you want to have as your goals, what you want to accomplish in that practicing session. So I know it wasn't a real specific answer for you. It really depends on you personally. For instance, if I have a recording session come up or if I'm doing a recital, usually my practice sessions are about 3 hours, but I break them up into pieces, 3 to 4 hours. So I like to get up in the morning and do my warm-ups in the morning, get that out of the way, do some technique exercises, and then I stop for a while and I take a break and I rest my brain, and then I'll get in there and I'll work on my pieces. And usually the closer I get to the recital, I reserve time for back-to-back run-throughs. I learned this from David Krakauer. So you run through your recital program and then you do it again. You do it twice, and that's to build up your endurance, so when the recital comes and you're all keyed up and you're ready to go, you're actually over-prepared for that. Okay, moving on to the next one. A lot of questions are coming in, so I'm going to just scroll back up so I can see them. Okay, Ouch, I keep hitting myself in the eye with these glasses. How do I play staccato notes in tune? Oh, that's an interesting question. Usually it's just how do I play staccato notes? And Junior 924 asks a really interesting question because when we play staccato notes on the clarinet, they tend to be sharp. It's just part of the engineering or the physics or the acoustics of the clarinet, so we tend to be sharp. When I'm playing staccato notes, it depends on if they're fast or not. I will actually pull down more with my embouchure and open up in my mouth to try and lower that pitch, and I keep my fingers very, very close to the keys. I always try to do that, but specifically when I'm doing staccato notes to sort of lower that pitch. And then a lot of times when I'm doing staccato notes, like I'm doing the Mendelssohn Scherzo, for example, and it's very quiet, which is also going to make my pitch higher, I will pull out my barrel a little bit as well. It helps not just for being faster and more accurate with keeping your fingers curved and closed, but it also helps you with your pitch as well. So that's one of the ways that you can help keep your pitch from getting too high when you're doing staccato notes. Now, if you're hitting that note really hard and your pitch is dropping, you need to double check your embouchure and you need to readjust how you're hitting that reed because you're hitting it too hard. A lot of times people hit the reed too hard with their tongue when they're doing staccato. It's sort of a misnomer or a misunderstanding about staccato notes. You don't want to hit the reed real hard. You want to be very light and delicate with the reed. You can still get that short staccato that way. Okay. Oh yeah, and anybody please put in your book suggestions or things that you have found that have helped you with some of these questions too. Please feel free to crowdsource this bad boy and help each other out. This is a collaboration. Okay. Tyler says, do you know anything about what type of pads would be good for wood clarinets? There's a lot of different pad types like cork, leather, bladder skin, and more, I think. Yeah, there totally are. And then Aiden has guest spot books are good. And I don't know what you mean by that one either. Okay, so if you want to clarify, that would be awesome. Okay, so Tyler, let's talk about your question about the pads. There are these pads on my clarinet. You can see that they're black. They're called Valeri pads. I love them. They're really, really fantastic. I had to have somebody put them on for me, and I'm really, really happy with them. And then my upper joint is cork pads. So I prefer the cork on the upper joint just because more water comes through my clarinet in the upper joint from playing, and the cork pads are more resistant to that water. So that's what I use with my pads on my B-flat clarinet. And then the bladder pads are fine. They can split. They wear out with time, so you just have to be careful with them. And sometimes I'll see people fiddling with their pads or playing with them, and that will split them. So you have to be really careful with those bladder pads because they can break. Once long ago, I had a student get a brand new E11 clarinet. She was very excited about it, and I came to her lesson, and she was just in tears. She had a concert that night, and her clarinet was not working. It was not playing at all. And then when I tried to play it, I couldn't play it. It was really leaky. I did the suction test, and nothing was working. And I looked at her pads, and all the skins of all the bladder pads were gone. And I asked her what happened, and she said her dad had gone through with tweezers and pulled all the skins off all of her bladder pads because he thought it was like, you know, that plastic film that you get on a new electronic device, like when you get an iPhone, you can peel it off. In my day, it was the VCR, and you peel that little plastic off the VCR screen. That's what he thought was on all the pads, and he pulled them all off. And then I told him what happened and how he needed to get it repaired, and he didn't believe me. And I sent him to a friend of mine who was a repair tech, and I was like, go talk to Mike. He will take care of you. But he had to repad that whole clarinet. It was a bummer. All right. Okay, so the ABRSM grade 4 clarinet. So Aiden, what was your grade 4? Any tips for grade 4? I'm not quite sure how to answer that. Instead of asking me that question as grade 4 clarinet, can you be a little bit more clarinet specific? The trouble with grades, with playing pieces, so in America we do it like a piece is a grade 4 piece, right? But I know other countries actually have you test into different grades and different playing levels. And so I need a little more specific information to help you with that. So maybe say your age, or maybe say a recent piece that you've played, and that would help me with that more. Okay, Atlas, hello. David, hello. Marcel, how do you play with your teeth on the mouthpiece or your lip? So my bottom lip is over my bottom teeth and against the reed. So that's how I cushion my reed. But I do use my top teeth on my mouthpiece patch. Right there. I don't play double lip. There's some people that will use their top lip under their top teeth as well, and then they play double lip. They like that because it has a darker sound. Sometimes I'll use that technique with my students if they're biting. It will help prevent biting. It's a really good way to help them with that. All right, moving on to the next one. Atlas, are there any free sheet music that is good for practicing? I need something to play. Yes. And if somebody can type this in the chat bar for me, because I'm not going to be able to get to it while I'm talking, go to imslp.com and look up clarinet music. So a lot of those etude books that I recommended previously are public domain. So you can get them for free. The Rose Etudes, the Closet Celebrated Method, the Berriman, Third Division, I think is what it's called, the Krebs, the Polacek, they're all public domain and you can find them on IMSLP. It will be very expensive to print them out if you want to print them out and have print copies, but it is free. Yeah, so check out that. All right. Oh yeah, you're in England. Okay, yeah, so yeah, the grade 4s are a little different. Okay. Daisy says, I practice with at least two hours since I have a busy day with online school. Wow, you guys, the online school is crazy and you're managing to get 2 hours of practice time in there. Good for you. Okay, but I always clean my instrument after. Oh yeah, always clean your instrument. Even if you're playing it for 5 minutes, clean that out with the swab. You definitely want to clean this out. You do not want to get, what is it, saxophone player, lung. You also don't want to get the pads can get damaged from that. Wood can crack, you can get mold. Yeah, you just swab that thing out. Not that hard. It takes an extra 20 seconds. All right, how do you play the lowest note on the clarinet? That's Kyler. Again, all right, so we're going to work our way down, and we have low F right here, and then low E is right there. That's the lowest note. You can leave your pinky down on the F if you want to. You also can play the lowest note that way. This is also an E, so see how they're interchangeable. All right, and then I need help with the register key. Can you make a video about it? I do have a video on here about playing over the break with the register key. The trap with the register key is a lot of times when people pick it up, they'll lift up their thumb. So just remember you need to keep your thumb down and you're just going to tap it with the side of your thumb. One of the things that I notice with beginner clarinet players, and you get over it pretty quickly, is they think that you play the keys with the pads of your fingers. Like they'll play an A like this or an A flat like that. But you actually play them with the sides of your fingers. That's how they're designed. So the register key is designed to just be played with the very edge of your thumb right there. Okay, yeah, Aiden, I think it's different for you guys. Junior, how do I get higher notes in tune? I usually drop my jaw, but sometimes they are still slightly sharp. Keep your fingers curved and close. Experiment with your tongue position for the high notes. You know, if you're saying E like that, that can help change your pitch too. But if you're finding that that doesn't work, you can just pull out a little bit from your, if it's over the break high notes, in the clarion range, you can pull out a little from the middle of the clarinet. And if it's the altissimo range, you can try pulling out a little bit from your barrel. But that's only if they're consistently out of tune. So if you're having a consistent problem with them being sharp, then try adjusting, you know, the length of your clarinet. Otherwise, there are ways we can do it with our embouchures, hand position, tongue position within your mouth. You can also try different reeds. Sometimes that will help too. Different mouthpieces can also help. All right, I'm going to take one more question and then I'm going to wrap up because I have to get to my lesson. And Sumith plays B-flat clarinet. So do I. Tyler says, oh, thank you. That story about the pads. Yeah, it was a bummer. It was a real sad thing to see. I was like, I'm really sorry. All right, Aaron, hello. Wow. No, I'm not quite sure that's clarinet related. Moving on. Mason, I'm in the second year of school band. I was wondering if there were any certain way to blow through my instrument to help play the higher notes easier. More air. Ouch, more air. I think a lot of people don't use enough air, and I had that big speech in the beginning about using beautiful sound and always playing beautifully, and then people will back off and they won't use enough air. So use a lot of air and it will be super ugly, and then back off. like that. So that's one of the tricks Yehuda Glad told me, is just go for it and use all that air in there. Don't be afraid of the bad sound, and then you can pull it back and refine it. All right, so those were some of my answers to some of your clarinet questions. I'm sorry I didn't get to everybody again, but thank you so much for coming and supporting the channel, and happy clarinetting. Bye.